Propel Your Audience. We are back with Alex Smith. I don't know why, but man, every time I think of Alex Smith, I think of The Matrix and Agent Smith. And you kind of are an agent, man, like an agent of stories. Like I'm excited to have you on today. Account executive at Docebo. Yes, it's not Docebo, it's Docebo. Say it right. And then podcast host, which I was on your podcast almost a year ago, which is how we originally met. We chopped it up because it's called The Stories of Selling Human. And you've had some big guests like even Daniel Pink on, which is super impressive. Dude, thanks so much for hopping on.
Thank you, Chris. I'm excited. I got like chills, like got me hype with the music. Let's do this.
Let's do this. All right. So for all those that haven't ever tuned into this before, what we do is we bring somebody on that tells us a narrative or some stories that they're using in their process. It might be with their people, it might be with their prospects, or it might be with their customers or their partners. We then help them enhance those stories or grow those stories or just give them some thoughts outside of the norm. I think we sometimes grow numb to the best stories that we have. And then especially in a sales role, a lot of times we just keep regurgitating the same stories over and over and over. And no one's really there on the outside saying, hey, have you thought about this? Or maybe this word means more, or maybe this is a more simple way to understand. So give us some context in your role as an account executive. Give us some context into who your audience is that you're reaching out to on a regular basis, whether that be a cold call or inbound or something of that nature.
Awesome. Yeah. So we have a lot of ideal customer profiles who I'm reaching out to, typically people that are wanting to, rethink how they're delivering learning. They're learning development professionals, people that like create training. They're developing learning programs and, development programs at their organization. A lot of times companies will have a certain department for learning and development. And so they're people that just went to school to design programs for how adults learn. So that's one. Another one is sales enablement. So a lot of times, sales enablement leaders, there's tons of sales enablement specific platforms, but what makes Docebo different a lot of times is really just embedding sales enablement within your CRM, within Salesforce, how to really configure learning pathways for your reps based on where they're at in your organization. What is their role like? Who are they? What stage are they at in a deal? And really doing that learning to match where people are. We also talk with people. I like to say I help people. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, Chris, I help organizations. I help organizations really develop learning experiences that are engaging for their people, their partners, and their customers. And those things can be so many different titles. People that are doing learning for their people, like sales enablement people, or just any person. Customers, maybe you're training your customers to adopt your products a little bit better, or partners. Like I was in a role with my previous role where we had partners reselling our services, and so we needed to train them up. So we deal with all those use cases.
What size does a company need to be to have a director of L&D, of learning and development? Is there a certain size you would say of we're really working in companies that have 250 or 500 employees or more?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, my segment is majors, so it's 500 to 5,000 employees. But typically, you might see somebody like, at least using what we have, we're more enterprise cloud-based LMS. Someone maybe if it's for internal, have a minimum of, at minimum maybe, 150 to 300, or your fast-growing software company. If you're doing it for external employees, doesn't really matter, right? You're training your customers, so it's really based on a lot of different factors while you're delivering learning.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, let's do this way. Let me give you a scenario, and I'll play the role. You then are going to craft a narrative around this scenario, and we'll just kind of talk through the story. So I want you to imagine that I am the director of L&D for a a startup company that has grown extremely fast in the last 5 years. And because of that, we have hit the mark of about 750 employees worldwide. We have new products that are continually rolling out that are extensions of our core product. And so we need to educate our people on product knowledge, as well as who is the ideal customer for these products. Also, most of my employees, almost my people are remote. They're remote employees. They're not in an office somewhere. And we only have one live event that's an optional event for all of our global employees to come into. But other than that, we're rarely ever together. Now, let's say you and I have went back and forth through email, and I like what you guys offer, and I've heard about you. But now we're hopping on a call for you to kind of take me through, ask me some questions, and take me through kind of the narrative of like why I would want to go with you all versus some other LMS. Is that good?
Yeah. Cool. Chris, man, thanks for your time today and your engagement throughout this process. It's been awesome. Thanks for this shot.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
I think that when you think of Docebo, I think one word comes to mind, and it's been at our core since the very beginning, and that one word is engagement. We really design our whole entire platform and our products to make learning more feel like something like I get to do than I'm forced to do or I have to do. You could probably think back, Chris, at times where maybe you took training in a dark classroom, or maybe the teacher wasn't super fun or drab, and it was just kind of like, man, I just got to get through this. I can't wait for this hour training to be over with, and you were checked out within the first 5 minutes. We really believe, Chris, at our core since the very beginning, that disengagement is the enemy of great learning cultures. When people disengage, you've lost them, right? So, at our core, things that are great about Docebo and why people have really kind of gravitated to something like us is when you see it, the experience is personalized to your role. It looks and feels more like YouTube and Netflix and less like something that just checks the box and really gets people to come in and come out. I can really learn from my peers. I can capture all that great learning that happens from your person sitting behind you, or maybe you said you were a remote organization. There's so much great learning that happens on a phone call sometimes, or in a micro team, but it's not captured anywhere. That's something that's captured in Docebo. There's a lot of different ways, but know at your core, Chris, that's why people have always kind of gravitated to us. What's really awesome in the last year, that story we've noticed really over the last few years, Chris, that people have come to us not just to engage as an engaging LMS, which we've always been really good at, but people have come to us for all the steps in a learning strategy, whether it's creating content, managing what you have, delivering it, or tracking effectiveness. People come to us and they're going to multiple providers for it. So we've seen a lot of friction between those steps in that process. And we can now, there's a lot of things that we can solve with that process with our learning suite. So we're a true learning technology platform, more so than just an LMS. We're so much more than that now. So that's where we really begin. Again, we really believe in engagement, but we also believe in being experts in learning and connecting all the steps in a learning strategy. So yeah, curious, what we're doing today, Chris, and maybe we can talk through a little bit about the story.
So currently in our company, I think what we're trying to accomplish is that we're trying to help our leaders be able to increase. Your word was engagement. We use the word attentiveness. We're trying to increase attentiveness of the team because what we recognize is that when they don't get the learning we need them to, then they are then going upon their own. It's a guessing game. They're guessing the way they want to sell. They are guessing the way they want to market. Our content is great, and our trainers are great, but our people aren't taking it and then using it. So I'm not sure where the gap is, but I know that we have seen a low or a steady decline of participation in our post calls. So we may have a learning for everyone, and then our leaders will then go with their teams, their micro teams, as you said, and they'll ask them questions, and they just they can't take anything away. They don't understand what we're trying to get them to accomplish. So I think that's where we are. And when I looked at your guys's I looked at your guys' website, and I saw the YouTube and the Netflix and those kind of things. Like, I want to make sure that we stay relevant. As our company grows, we want to hire the top talent. And so as we hire in that top talent, if we don't fuel that top talent with the right education, with the right development, and the right learning, they're going to go find somebody that does. So I think that's kind of where we're at right now is, we've done a lot internally, and we're trying to say there's got to be a platform out there that can help us grow alongside us.
Yeah. It's important. I mean, you said a lot of big things there. People guessing like what they want to do, guessing what they need to be doing at a certain stage in a deal, or kind of using what they're training. You don't know kind of what they're doing, and so I think one of the key things to keep in mind, and the reason why like sales enablement teams will come to a place like us is really to give them learning at the moment that they need it in the flow of work, just in time learning for where I'm at in a deal. So I know exactly what I could be learning, not because I'm made to or go take this learning, but I know at a certain stage in the deal in my CRM, I can go directly and launch into learning that's really designed for a prospecting stage or a demo stage or a disco stage. And I know where to find it. It shouldn't be like, you shouldn't have to learn how to take learning. You should be able to make it feel natural, to make it feel easy to access, that it's useful. Really, learning has to be really useful to my day-to-day job. And if it's not, I'm going to go, like you said, somewhere else and finding it. So that's like really, like, we can go in and talk about that, Chris, about how you configure the experience, the approach to that person based on where you're at in that CRM, like that person's at in the CRM. So I can know based on my role as a BDR and AE exactly what I need for exactly that point in my deal to really find things a lot easier than just to kind of guess.
Okay, great. Where do we go from here?
Well, let's kind of ask some more direct questions, and we'll kind of tailor a demo based on some of that, if that's cool.
Sure, let's do it.
All right.
So let's pause
and
there.
Scene.
Cool. So the idea would be then when they show up to this meeting, they'll have enough information that typically they ask some pointed questions at this moment. Is that what typically your experience is?
I wasn't taking that like a full discovery call. So I was just kind of like practicing different stories about us and, kind of based on your use case. But, if I was going through a full discovery, my goal is always to find like, I'm problem finding, I'm going to ask you some more pointed questions about your experience. What happens when you say like, tell me more about that, Chris? What does that look like? Tell me how you're delivering content, like, delivering learning today, what you have, but like really what's the impact of that? Like what's your numbers? How is that affecting numbers? And get them to really tell me. So what I show on that demo is really personalized. So we really take a lot of effort in when I show something to you, it looks like I could turn this on, and start using it. And I have the ability, really to tailor that experience based on what you've told me and show really, I think the key to demos is like showing exactly like that problem. So I would show you maybe what our sales enablement platform looks like and give you some ideas of how you could build that for yours and how can you make it so things are within a click and, really easy for people to find and that sort of thing. So yeah, we
Awesome.
try to really personalize the demo for the story that I'm going to, try to match myself with on that call.
So now tell me, if you had to give your outbound prospecting sequence, as well as discovery to demo to close, if you think about that whole entire journey from I'm getting the email from Docebo, Alex Smith, all the way to, yes, we're going to implement this into our program, what is the overall narrative that you would say that you're putting out there? Like if you had to give it a title or a phrase, or what would that be overall narrative be?
I want it to feel collaborative. That we're not talking at them. We're really joining with them and joining I'm guiding them. I'm really learning about I'm learning about them just as much. Like I'm not teaching them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want to be the teacher or I used to think that in sales. Like I really want to set myself as a learner and collaborate with them and ask you questions. I think I posted something on LinkedIn today, even just real empathy isn't really putting yourself into someone else's shoes. It's really listening, understanding what someone's like, listening to their story and believing them. And really the minute I put myself in your shoes, I'm kind of taking you out of the equation, kind of like trying to guess. I say collaborative because I want them to feel like they can tell me, they can tell me things, and we're working on this together. And regardless of they do it or not, at least we've worked with each other to come up with a potential solution throughout the process.
What would the story be from a prospect's perspective, a director of L&D that has seen 6 different touches from you? If you were to go to them, or I was to go to them and say, hey, tell me about Docebo. What do they stand for? Like, what's the magical kingdom with the elixir, the new world that they're offering you if you were to buy their product? What do you think people would say to that?
I think people might say something like, user experience is really, it's really easy to understand. It's whether you're a learner or an admin, it's very user friendly. These reviews are out there. You can read them on Gartner and stuff like that. But it's really user friendly. It's not just meant for one use case. I can do my internal training and potentially my external partner or customer training all from one system. I can configure experiences with my HR system really seamlessly, and so I can create a lot of personalized learning easily. I don't have to use a lot of web development or code. So they would say something like user friendly, ease of use, multiple experiences in one place, that sort of thing.
What's the common data point that a director of L&D is looking at to say our LMS is working, our people are engaged, and we're seeing growth based upon how we're educating them and then being engaged in this learning? What's the data, or maybe a few of them?
Yeah, it is beyond just did they complete a test. That's one. Completions. Yes, you want to know are people actually taking the training? But going deeper, there's a metric that you can start getting people to rate and ask questions and do things beyond just surveys to be happy, but a metric you can actually match learning based on your business metrics. When learning increased, our conversions did this, our sell-through rate did this, our customer sat scores did this. So there's a way with Docebo that can actually correlate your business metrics with your learning metrics. And that's that correlation is where kind of real insight will tend to live. You can do that on a quantitative aspect, but also like qualitative. Like you can understand, something like, the effectiveness of learning. You can get somebody to rate themselves and say, you told me you wanted to learn this before the training. How well do you feel like you were able to use that in your day to day? And then months later say, hey, you said you wanted to learn that. How well do you think you're using what you learned? And start correlating those qualitative metrics. Like, do I feel like this was beneficial to me?
Mm-hmm.
All
right. So here is my observations that I see. So the framework that I always use is, what is their story? What is my story? And what's our story together? What's that future together that we can have? So when you started off, and I think you said later on in the call, or later on in our conversation here, that, I probably would have asked some more questions, because you started off telling me Docebo's story first, right? I get to do versus I'm forced to do. We're all about engagement. The story about the old way of training in the dark room with the teacher that had the projector. Disengagement always gets in the way of learning. We're like YouTube and Netflix. We learn from our peers and the experts that are inside our own offices. So I would tell you that to flip it in the sense of, and it sounds like this might already be happening, but as much of their story that you can get to then align all of the things in Docebo's story to their story, the more often they're nodding their head, because you're taking them to the future that they want. So what has your learning experiences been? Have they always been good? Has every learning experience in your life been good? So instead of telling them the story of the dark room with the teacher that's boring, let them tell you, oh my goodness, training has changed so dramatically. I used to have to go to these seminars and draw out their story, and then use that then when you communicate back to them. Well, obviously we don't want your people to feel like they're back in those hotels that you said you went to. That's much more like for them, like, oh yeah, I don't want to be that, because I know how I felt about that. So take their story and almost like serve it back, give it back to them, narrate it back to them, because that'll create a lot more of, yeah, that's so true. That makes sense, because now we're tapping into an emotional feeling that they have about training, about engagement. So instead of telling them engagement improve, and we can't have it like, instead of link it back to their own story.
Totally.
Also ask them about their people. What do you think your people are experiencing? I mean, you said, Chris, that all of your people are globally. It's so difficult to create culture globally. So tell me, how is that learning going on when someone's, I know for me, I'm in my office and the cat's jumping up on the keyboard, and there's so many things. You got to pick up the kid, and you got more. And how do you, how are you guys thinking about all those obstacles, and what are your people experiencing? I liked the metrics that you just told me, that maybe you could serve those up in that question. Are you seeing low completion rates? Are you seeing that no one's rating or asking questions? Or are you just hearing from your leaders that we're not seeing business grow based upon these new things we're learning? So I would ask them about their people's experience. The most difficult part for anybody that's watching this is that Alex really has two audiences. Now he's talking the decision maker to pay to say, yeah, we want to implement, but really his user are the people that the L&D director of L&D is in charge of. So they're the ones that actually come back and say, hey, chef, you did a great job. The food's awesome. But Alex only gets to talk to the server. He doesn't get to, he doesn't really get to communicate with the actual user in most cases. So I think that's in anyone else out there, when you think about, I'm selling the product to the decision maker, but I've got to communicate to them in terms of, this is how it's going to affect your important audience. Meaning this, Alex, we have to give the director of L&D or sales enablement director, whoever it might be, we have to give them a story to tell, which poses a challenge for you, because we have to make it in such a simple form that they then can go and say, listen, I think I found a product that is, I think your words were, hold on, let me find it. That will be there when they need it. That will be there when they need it. I think I found a training program that is going to be there and grow with them when they need it. So unlike other learning platforms where we're serving up Hey, Alex, you need this. Hey, Chris, you need this. Hey, it's time for this. Hey, the way our program is that in order to increase engagement, we give learning when they need it most, when they're looking around for resources, that's when we serve it to them. So think about, is there a simple narrative that you can come up with that paints a better future that then you can serve to director of L&D, whoever the ICP is, that then they can go tell that story to other people to say, yes, let's get on the demo and look at it, or yes, let's check this thing out, or that sounds interesting. That's unlike a lot of the competitors. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, for sure. No. Yeah, I'm always thinking that all this is great feedback. I'm thinking of, yeah, a lot of times, like, you want to get into the other room and be the ones actually selling it for you, but you need to kind of empower your champions with stories. So I love that, being able to flip it and say, hey, like, yeah, we're gonna, we're gonna help give them the learning when they need it the most, like at the moment of need. And when you were saying things like, just, kind of flip it. Like, I don't know about you, but like, tell me what your experience has been like. I know for me, it's been like this. We were talking beforehand. Like, I've actually been on the partner training side. So like that subtle thing where it's like, hey man, like, tell me, Chris, like, what's your experience been? I know for me, like, one time, I don't know, you tell me if this is like you, but like one time I was managing this partner channel program, and it was wild. Like, we just threw videos at people, and I had no idea, like, if they were working, if they weren't, like, if people were watching them, but I had to give them, because like, that's what you did when like a new reseller came on board. We just gave them a bunch of training videos, and then I followed up with them. But
yeah, that's huge, man. I think if you're listening to Alex, the really great part of that is it's collaborative. It's not him talking at them, but it's him saying, hey, you know what? My experience with learning has been this, and that's why I'm so passionate with working at Docebo, because we don't do that. We don't try to do that. You know what I mean? So I think it's been really valuable for people that are tuning into this to hear about a story for two audiences, because we don't get that very often. I think a lot of times what people that come on here anyways, they have one audience and they're going for one audience if they can get that in. And so I think if you're listening to this, you need to consider if you are helping your decision makers tell a story. Can they go back into the organization and tell the story, and tell the story that you told them, or take the narrative and run with the narrative that you've given them? It's extremely valuable. But if you're only thinking about your audience right in front of you, you're not going to have the type of traction and success that you really want, because they won't know how to then explain or show and tell what your product offers to the audience that's going to be affected by it most. The only other weird idea that I had, man, was like, and they may already know, but you could even like, hey, whoever your most trusted person is underneath you, you should just go ask them these two questions. It really helps us out in knowing where they're going and it'd be an interesting dynamic for a leader to go ask a person, hey, tell me, like, on that last training that came out, it's okay, you're not going to get I just want to know, like, what did you like? What didn't you like? What impacted your life? What didn't? How often do you get off of a training and feel like, that could have been a memo, or that could have been how often, and here's the last thing I'll leave you with that I think is important, is we almost want people that after training, they're excited to go post. They're excited to go talk about it. And if we're not giving training that excites someone to go take action, then our training kind of is falling flat. So is your training helping people take action? Is your training exciting people to go and try new things and take action? That, who knows, that could be a narrative that gets thrown around or whatever. So
yeah. Do you want to take the course again?
Yeah.
Would you take it again if you weren't being made to take it?
Correct.
Do you feel like you were using it later?
Yeah. Or do you feel so impacted that you want to go teach other people now?
Yeah.
Oh, because I'm seeing that a lot now on like social media, right? On LinkedIn and different places. Like, hey guys, I just wanted to let you know about this cool training I went through. And like, maybe let's just say you had a training on empathy 3 days ago, and you just took a piece out of that, and then today decided to post. Like, how often are we exciting people with learning where they go tell others. Because I promise you, man, like if someone's reading, if someone's reading this book right here called Hunger in Paradise, Rasmus Ankerson, and they read it and they're like, man, I never knew that story about Lego. Man, I never knew that story about so-and-so. Like they're racing to go tell someone because they're so excited about it. How often is our internal training doing that? So, dude, thanks so much for coming on. Thanks so much for giving us an opportunity to hear the narratives and the stories that you are using in your line of work. I wish you the greatest success at Docebo, and man, you always have a place with me on this show and in my ecosystem.
Chris, can I have a 1 minute story to wrap this all up with what you just said?
Yeah.
All right. So many of you may know that Docebo is Latin for I will teach. And I love like asking people say like, is it Docebo, Docebo? And so they ask me and I say, you have to say it like the Italians and Docebo. And it's a Latin phrase. Well, about a week ago, I get this demo that I'm on and a guy asks me, do you know what Docebo stands for in Latin? I'm like, I know. Do you? And he's like, oh, of course. Like I went to a boys Latin school in high school. I'm like, no way. He's like, it means I will teach. And I was like, great. He's like, another phrase that I, used to use, it's called docendo discimus or docendo discimus. I'm like, what does that mean? And he goes, through teaching, we learn. I'm like, dude, you gave me everything. That's perfect. And that just wraps up what you just said, Chris. So it doesn't happen every day that people throw that line, a Latin line, but you just learned something too on this. Docendo discimus.
Docendo discimus. I love it. I have a good friend. His brother taught at a all boys Latin school for about 15 years. And I always thought, who needs that? But now I realize, that people need it, and it's great.
Yeah.
Dude, thanks so much for hopping on for real. And for all you tuning in, if you have a story that you want to work on, a story that you're like, man, I want to hop on and tell the story and work through it. I'll tell you that Alex is phenomenal. He has a freaking podcast on storytelling. He hopped in today. He gave us a story. He probably took 2 or 3 things away that he'll either think about or use at a future time. And would love to have you on. We are here every Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesdays is a solo show. Thursdays is Tell Me a Story. And man, thanks so much. Appreciate you. For everybody listening, look forward to seeing you